We're back for another after show. Welcome. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, whenever you are. Welcome back to the after show starring myself. My name is not JS, as a matter of fact. This happens. I feel like this happens every single time now. I have to make sure that I change it before we go. My name is Geoff. That over there is that Valkyrie girl. We know her as Editor Megan. This is the after show, and we are on our rewatch. The Legend of Vox Machina. We are on season 1. We have gone all the way up to episode 6. If you haven't caught the show before, thank you very much for joining us. We are on a rewatch of The Legend of Vox Machina. We did an after show for the live shows for season 3 as they came out, 3 shows at a time. It wasn't hell. Well, maybe it was a little bit of hell. It was the same kind of hell that Grog feels when there's no ale. It was that kind of hell.
Specifically that kind of hell.
Which we got to see in this particular episode that we're going to be talking about. So yes, we are on a rewatch. We, both Megan and I have never watched any of the campaign itself. We had no idea who Critical Role was going into this show. We just watched the show. We loved it so much. We're doing a rewatch and we're sharing that with you guys. So on the rewatch, we are trying to catch some stuff that maybe we didn't see before, didn't realize was foreshadowing. We may tell you that a certain event's going to be foreshadowing, but we're not going to give away any major spoilers for what's going to come if you are watching it with us, but it's your first time. Megan, what did we feel about this show? We've been fairly frank about this. We're kind of right in the midst, maybe even still kind of feeling like a little bit in the early goings of this whole Whitestone Derulo plot line throughout the first season. How are we doing with this episode and how that relates to all of that overall narrative?
Of the ones, I remember seeing this one and thinking that things would progress much faster because of how many things happen in this episode, and then being mildly disappointed by how long it continues on. But this episode I actually quite liked. A lot happened. I enjoyed the character introductions. There were good reveals, so...
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. We certainly talked about it when we were looking at season 3. Is, you know, you've got your first few episodes where everything sort of starts to get set up. Although in this case, the first 2 episodes was them killing Brimside. So you had this amazing action-packed adventure in the first 2 episodes, and then the next 3 are kind of like setting up the final 6 or 7. So I think we're finally kind of getting over that hump and getting into what is going to be.
We're starting to get some payoff.
Yes, we are in Whitestone. In fact, we start off not with our band of intrepid heroes, Vox Machina. We start off with the Resistance, and then we get to meet Archibald, or Archie, as we're going to come to know him later on in the episode. They are planning something and start going over their themes and where their different little pods of resistance are, when a giant attacks. And I don't think it was done very well in that last episode because we only got like a brief look at the giant, but it's not just a regular giant.
Oh no, these things are freaking creepy.
They're like undead giants. I don't even want to say zombie so much because they're not like brains. They'll just eat and squash anybody, but they're not just big dudes. It's not what they are. They're giant undead giants. It's weird. It's a weird thematic choice. Dylan
thinks Grog cannot talk to them because he is part giant. Yes. It won't work that way.
Which, by the way, I think we first learned that here, that Grog is part giant in this opening scene when our intrepid heroes do finally make the scene. Before that, though, our Archie and what remains of this little resistance cell in this building are captured by who we learn as we got through this. I believe his name is Stonefell, which is the creepy-looking, short, fat, ugly dude with the really raspy voice. He's the one that captured.
We leaned in. They're like, how can we make him the creepiest person imaginable?
Yeah, the show makes no bones about who the good guys and who the bad guys are. Dude's clearly a bad guy. By the way, we're going to meet an even bigger bad guy a little bit later on this episode. Excuse me. But yes, we do find out in a brief conversation when our intrepid heroes finally make the scene that Grog is part giant. I believe Scanlan turns and says, like, can't you just talk to him? And Grog's like, what? Because we all know each other? Like, no, I don't know him. And again, just to be clear, too, by the way, if you're used to seeing giants that are like Game of Thrones, like 10 or 12 feet tall, these giants are like 2 and 3 stories tall. So I don't know how much giant Grog is, but Grog is just slightly taller than everybody else, and these giants are...
Yes, we'll find out. It's like when someone says that they're like Italian, but they're like 1/10 Italian.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, he may be part giant, but it's clearly not a very big part. Right. Now that they've made the scene, though, and Percy is in Whitestone, he does meet some other people from the Resistance, another person that's from a different cell of the Resistance in there, giving him shit for being on the street, and he immediately asks after Keeper Yenin. And again, not to give... let me put it this way. The Whitestone narrative, this is a specific narrative that's going to go on for this first season, but Keeper Yenin is going to be someone that we're going to continue to see throughout the show. It's not just going to be in Whitestone, and then when we're done with Whitestone, she's just gone with the rest of the Whitestonians. Whitestonians? Whitestoners? Aha! Whitestoners. Perfect. She will remain a Whitestoner, but we are going to keep up with Keeper Yenin as we go through. She seems to be some sort of a religious figure for the town. She recognizes Percy immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Even though it's clearly been some time since Percival has been to Whitestone, she immediately knows who it is. I don't know. Maybe it's the white spiky hair. Maybe it's the round spectacles. Maybe it's the frou-frou dress he's wearing. I don't know. But clearly she knows it's him.
Yeah. Immediately knows that it's him, and immediately knows that he's in a rough spot. Like, just looking at his face, what happened to you? I'm like, Percy looks normal. What's going on?
I mean, I guess we're trying to get at is he appears to be haunted as well. Yeah. She makes a glib reference about him leading this band of people here when she says that Whitestone needs a leader, and he's like, I'm not a leader. She's like, well, you're leading these guys, and suddenly there's a big brouhaha with the group as to who the leader is.
No, everyone is very upset about the thought of Percy being the leader.
But now they're all vying for their own leadership, and Scanlan like, what, there's a height requirement for leadership? And Grog is like, obviously. Yes, there is. And then Keyleth is like, I thought we were all kind of the leader, because Keyleth. So, yeah, nice little aside there as far as that goes. They get into a basement where they can speak freely. You can see roots of the sun tree. Poor Grog has discovered hell, and in fact, it's the hell of many, many empty ale barrels and no ale to have. No. Keeper Yenin informs them that the Briarwoods have not been real generous with the resources as far as that goes, and they are running out, and that the ale was amongst the first things to go because, I mean, who doesn't like drinking ale at the end of the day, right? Resistance work. Be thirsty. We do, by the way, so I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Sorry, while they're in this little basement, this roots of the sun tree there, Keyleth goes to start talking to the sun tree. In fact, she does. Yep. But then she's interrupted. I think Grog grabs her and takes her away.
Yeah, before she can like touch the roots, Grog is just like, scoop.
So we don't know where that's quite going to go yet. But there is a really brief reference, which is going to maybe possibly play a part a little bit later on, mentioning Percy's brother. She starts to say your brother, and then she's cut off, and they start talking about something else. Keep up with that. Now, this would not be Vox Machina unless we go on a side quest. So instead of them just marching up the hill to go take on the Briarwoods, which, according to Keeper Yenin, would be a fucking disaster.
Yeah, just like, that's just a suicide mission. Don't do that.
They need some help first, and the best way for them to get help is through this resistance cell, but the problem is their leader is captured. So it's side quest time for our group.
Yep, gotta go and get the leader of the resistance / Percy's childhood friend.
Yes. In this case, it's going to be Archie, who we did meet a little bit earlier, who was captured by the terrible guy with the raspy voice that we talked about. While we're sorting this out, we get ourselves a Pike update.
Yeah, she is hanging out with the other priests / temple caretaker nun religious people. She's with the group of religious people.
And what's she trying to do exactly? She's
trying to contact the Everlight, which is not going well.
She's convinced she's cursed by Delilah Briarwood.
Yes, and one thing that they did bring up is that it's not a curse, it's something inside of her, which kind of reference point to later, to season 3.
It is.
Maybe.
But it feels like it's still like an ongoing theme with our poor Pike, who has been a shit priest from the jump and continues to be a shit priest. And it's all seems to be this internal conflict. And yes, we are all kind of waiting for, the power was in you all along and that kind of thing, right? So the priest does say one thing specific: no curse, no power on this earth or this planet could keep you from the Everlight or keep the Everlight from you. So this is clearly a blockage of your own making. But even in the middle of the temple, surrounded by adepts, she still can't seem to contact the Everlight. So whatever this blockage is that's going on with Pickle, it's a significant one. Absolutely.
Yep.
Excuse me. Then we go back to some more torture of Archie as Stonefell starts to brutalize him. But then Stonefell's like, well, if you're not going to talk for me, maybe you'll talk to this guy.
And just...
a big blue dude walks in who is voiced by none other than Rory McCann, also known as Sandor Clegane, also known as the Hound from your favorite Game of Thrones series. Oddly enough, the character, they kind of made him look a little bit like Rory McCann as well. So he sounds like him. He kind of looks like him. He's referred to as the Duke.
The Duke, yes.
And the first thing he does is rip this brother's ear off, which, rude.
Yeah, I'm like, geez, that's a choice.
He passes out. Stonefell thinks he killed him. The Duke's like, he'll wake up. And when he does, more of that's coming his way. They're trying to find out where the rest of the resistant cells are located, type of thing. Since he's the leader, he's refusing to talk.
Yeah. Well, they're specifically asking him about Vox Machina, which at this point, I don't think he even knows who they are.
Archie absolutely does not know who Vox Machina is, and I don't even know how the Duke knows unless the Briarwoods told the Duke, and now the Duke is on the lookout for them. So yeah, that's clearly happened off camera. Percy then does, I believe, anyway, Percy does his impression of Batman. He goes up on a tall tower. His cloak is billowing out behind him, and he's using what is now his big rifle that's got all these little scopes on it to figure out where Archie is hiding. He somehow figures this out and spots where he's going to be, and now it's time to come up with a plan. Everybody gets a chance to come up with a plan. At the very least, we get a plan from Keyleth, Scanlan, and Grog. How good are these plans?
These plans are plans.
Something tells me you probably enjoyed one of those three plans and tremendously.
I would say Keyleth's plan of I talk to the animals and they go and get the keys and break out all the people.
By the way, there's cutesy little like cartoon drawing for this that I know you had that exact look on your face that's on your face right now when you were watching the cute little cartoon drawings of Keyleth and the animals in particular. Vex is having none of it. Vex, I like Vexalia in the fact that she seems to be the one for the most part that just is not really into the bullshit. Like, she's going to be the one to kind of cut through all of that and be like, nothing fancy, two teams, a front door team and a back door team, to which, of course, we have to have Scanlan make the back door team joke. By the way, he gets a beret earlier in the episode. He's going to be Scanlan the Revolutionary, and he would look great in a beret. And we find out. Spot on. He absolutely does look good in a beret. The one team gets in, no problem at all, and starts to make their way through this keep where Archibald's being held. And as they're going through, Keyleth sees some prisoners, clearly resistance fighters.
Yep.
And much to Vex's chagrin, because now she doesn't just have to babysit these two morons, she's got to babysit the whole damn crew.
Whole team.
They let the prisoners out, and now they are many. While this is going on, the three lads, Vax, Scanlan, and Percy, are at the back door trying to get in. Having a time.
The most of a time. This door will not open. And then Percy fell out the window.
Yes. Scanlan and our boy Vax. Vax, who usually is the lock-picking guy and has no problem.
Yep.
He can't seem to pick this lock. Him and Scanlan try together to pick the lock, and they can't do it. Percy's like, well, fuck this. I'm going to go find a window. Percy goes to find a window and immediately falls out of said window onto Vax and Scanlan in a heap. While these three boys are in a heap, a guard just happens to open the door and throws a bucket of piss out onto them. And then they kill said guard, and now they're finally in. This entire time, by the way, Team A through the front door has been making progress all the way throughout.
Whole way through. They've let people out. They're making their way down. I think they're basically where Archie is being kept already. They're like, what's going on? Where are the rest of them?
Yep. They finally, looks like they meet, and they're about to escape when Short, Fat, and Ugly shows up with his retinue of guards and our favorite pervy gnome, Scanlan, as his prisoner.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what it looks like initially.
Yeah.
But then we find out
there's actually a Scanlan behind him.
Yes. So we did mention, I think it was in the second episode, that Scanlan is somehow able to make an illusion of all of Vox Machina together. And I think we even said at that time, like, this is a really cool power. He never does this again. We were wrong. He does it here. He literally makes like an illusion of himself, which the guards then turn to go kill. And then he makes his rapid escape for the building. And suddenly you get a for White Stone. And everybody ends up in a giant battle and fight.
Big fight.
Now, the nice part about this is we get an opportunity to see some actual death in these battles, because we can't really see that with our Vox Machina crew, because, I mean, they all have to live. They're all there. They're the main cast members. But we never get to see really any good guys die as far as a pitched battle goes. But there's many a villager here. And by villager, I mean fodder, because...
Yep, we're burning through those red shirts right now.
One of the resistance fighters, I believe a female dwarf that we met earlier in the episode, was the first one to approach Vox Machina and like get off the street, steps in front to protect one of Vox Machina that had fallen.
Yeah.
It was Scanlan. Terrible move.
Yeah, that did not go well, because even though they were able to defeat the one that was currently attacking them, as soon as they turned around, big creepy dude with his big hammer broke their legs and crushed their skull.
Yeah, it's not pretty, kids. Nice. Yeah, the leg bash is not too bad. When he cranks her over top of the head, she died bad. Let's just put it that way. She did not die well. This makes Keyleth really upset, and
it does. And then tiger.
Yes, Keyleth becomes a tiger, and she lunges after who we learn a little bit later on this episode. Stonefell is his name, short, fat, and ugly. Lunges after him. Some guards get in between them, so she can't get to him. And by then, they've got to get the fuck out of there, basically, right?
Yep.
Grog finds heaven.
He has found the alcohol.
He has found the ale. He grabs a barrel of ale and starts drinking it. By the way, for the rest of the episode, as Grog is weeding his way through these guards, he has this barrel of ale under his arm at the same time. He's cradling it like it's his long-lost child as he's wending his way through these guards without a problem. I did notice in this pitched battle, it seemed like they were almost careful not to show Grog a lot, because this is exactly the type of fight that Grog would absolutely dominate. Close quarters, tight weapons, like he's able to swing his weapon with impunity. He's able to just burn through these guards. So it felt like a lot of the actual fighting that we saw, I didn't see a lot. The whole time I'm like, why isn't Grog just in the middle of this fucking everyone up? And I think it's because they knew that he would just be in the middle of it fucking everyone up. So we do get to see Grog, though, finally. As they're making their escape, Percy happens to look over and he sees Stonefell.
Yep, and decides, I'm not going to go with everyone and escape right now. This is the perfect opportunity for me to cross a name off my list.
Yep. So he goes back in, and so the rest of them get to the end of the hall. Like, the door is there. They can go outside, and then they're like, fuck, where's Percy? And they're like, shit. So Vex is like, go get him. We'll hold the door. Essentially, her and the few villagers that survive this pitched battle with the guards and with Stonefell. Percy eyes Stonefell, and then as it's kind of a cool, kind of a corny transition, but as he's walking through the cells, you don't see him put the mask. That's the weird part. As he walks by one cell, he doesn't have it, and then there's a block. And then as he comes out the other cell, he already has the Plague Doctor mask on. So it was kind of a cool transition. At the same time, it kind of felt a little bit cheesy. You know what I'm saying? It could be both. It could be both. The mask comes out. The smoke starts to rise. And clearly, by the way, Stonefell has no idea who this dude is.
Oh, yeah. No, he has no idea because, without being able to see his face, he's just like, person, skinny dude. Yeah. I'm not worried.
So Percy, of course, gets the gun out, which, by the way, is another piece of technology that doesn't seem like a lot of other people know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think even Stonefell says, like, what is that? Or something along those lines anyway. He clearly doesn't recognize the threat that the gun poses, which, foreshadowing alert, not much moving forward. But in this case,
it poses.
It's especially effective against Stonefell, though.
Yep, because he's got his big hammer, and Percy literally shoots, like, the head of it, near the head, and just knocks off the hammer part, and he's just got a wooden stick then.
I think there's another reason why the gun is super effective, against Stonefell, as we see on the side of the gun.
Oh yes, his name is carved into one of the barrels.
So Percy at this point has the Plague Doctor mask. There's smoke coming up out of him, and he's pointing a gun at Stonefell, and Stonefell's name is etched on the side of the gun. And yes, Percy doesn't shoot him once. Percy shoots him several times.
Yep.
Blows all his fingers off, shoots him in the chest. And at this point, Stonefell, by the way, still has no idea who this is. Percy removes the Plague Doctor mask and looks down at this dude, and with this terrible expression on his face and blacked out eyes, he says, "I wanted you to know it was me." And at that point, somehow, by the way, Stonefell recognizes him. I don't know how, with all this smoke and black eyes and shit, but he's like, "Percy," and then he dies a pretty horrible death. And when that happens, when Stonefell dies, what happens to the gun?
I would say the name goes off of the gun.
If guys, I made a reference to Game of Thrones a little bit earlier on with an appearance by Rory McCann. If you're familiar with our dear Arya, and she had her little list of people that she was ticking off that she had to kill for vengeance. In fact, I think when Percy's got the Plague Doctor mask on and Stonefell says, "Who are you?" I think he says,
"I'm the vengeance for the Durolos."
For the Durolos, yeah. So not too hard to put these little pieces together as far as that goes.
Parallels.
The name disappears from the gun. Stonefell is dead. One down. We don't know how many to go. How many were implicit in the overrule and the Briarwoods coming in. At this point, they still have to get out. Vex turns to poor Grog and says, "How attached are you to that barrel of ale?" And Grog's like, "Ooh," and he literally like hugs and kisses it and then throws it back down the hall. And it's a really cool animated shot of this barrel slowly turning in slow motion as it sort of reaches the guards, and Vex shoots it with a flaming arrow. We get an exploding booze bomb.
Yep. I was a Molotov cocktail, but to the extreme.
Yeah. So we can assume that everyone escapes, and there's no all those guards are now extra tasty crispy. And then a bomb drops of a different kind at the end when Percy mentions being the last of the Durolo line, and Archie says, "You're not the last. Your sister is alive."
Cassandra.
But then we flash to Cassandra, but you're smiling, but where is Cassandra?
Yep, she is in the castle with Delilah.
With the Briarwoods. And she says something rather cryptic at the end, so I think we're going to find out that it may not be such a sweet brother-sister reunion if said reunion is to take place. Megan, overall, I think we can both agree this no longer felt like a purely setup episode. I think, like you mentioned earlier, some of the major plot points for this particular plot thread through Whitestone and Durolos moved forward significantly.
Yeah, things are starting to happen. We're figuring out what's going on. We're getting some payoff.
We getting some payoff. We're going to point out this is only the 6th episode of the season, and I believe there's 12 episodes total. So
halfway through.
We do still have quite a bit to do in Whitestone. There are still quite a few names left on this gun and quite a few things left to do to bring Whitestone back from the brink of destruction where it is now. So, guys, stay tuned for that. Megan, is there anything else from this episode? I know, again, someone was absent. We're still trinketless. We did get a reference to other animals, and of course, we did see Tiger Kiki, so that was something. But yes, unfortunately, we are still... Trinket Watch is still 2 episodes in a row, no Trinket. Anything else from this particular episode that caught your eye that you wanted to discuss or talk about before we get out of here today?
No, I think that is good.
Guys, we will be back next week. If you would be so kind, I mentioned this before and I'll mention this again, throw us a like and a subscribe. We are a very small operation. As you saw, we're not monetized. There's no sponsors for this video. There's no ads running in front or behind. It's just us doing our thing in our spare time out of our own pockets. So go ahead and hit that subscribe for us. It costs you nothing, but it helps us out tremendously. We will be back next week. If you guys did notice something from this particular episode that you think we should have talked about, go ahead and put it down in the comments below. Otherwise, stay geeky, everybody. We'll see you next week.